us, and we're getting the broadcast rolling. And this is gonna be fun. So we're doing our intro right now for all.
Run a podcast here, I think. So,
We'll
so
get
far,
you
so
there,
good.
guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am super stoked today. Magnus Walker himself in studio at the EMPI Insider, and man, we get to talk cars today. We get to talk everything you want to do.
I'm super happy to be here. I mentioned to you guys earlier on, I did this Hot Wheels Virtual Legends Tour live on the weekend, and one of the cars I picked for the UK side of the tour was an EMPI-inspired Baja Bug in the UK. So it's actually great to be here at the epicenter of all things, VW and performance, and go faster, handle better, build your Beetle, build your Bug, build your Squareback, whatever it is, your bus, and thanks for having me on.
No, this is cool, and it shows you that really what we're branching out. We're not just pigeonholed into just VW only stuff. Now that we're expanding in the Porsche stuff, and it's like you kind of crossing over into other platforms as well, and we get to talk about this kind of stuff.
I always jokingly say at the end of the day, they're all Beetles. I say, my Porsches, they all look the same. I always say they're all Beetles, and this, I think, is the epicenter. I mean, so much heritage here, and it's just awesome to actually take the tour and see where it all comes out of and pretty much where it began. There's a lot of heritage and a lot of history.
And that's what we love. I mean, it's for us and for guys like me, it's infectious, right? We all started with a Volkswagen somewhere. We jokingly say everybody's got a Volkswagen story in their life, but to kind of pay homage where we came from, whether it be an original artwork piece from like 1964 to an original magnesium BRM behind you. I mean, these are the things that are iconic items that started it all.
Right.
And we love this kind of stuff.
And I think SoCal, especially LA, is the epicenter of that. But like you say, it's a global brand. Obviously, the Bug is all over the world. One of my favorite cities, Mexico City, I guess, is one of, I think, the best places to see the most Beetles on the road still to this day is down in Mexico City. But obviously, there's a lot on the road everywhere.
Yeah, we've got all of our fans checking in from around the globe right now. We see our Mexico City people checking in.
Mira, ¿cómo está, México? ¿Cómo está?
We've got just everybody from around the globe already starting to check in and do the stuff, and this is the things that we really enjoy is to share stories, and some of the stuff that we've been asked is, one of your favorite car stories. We've got a list of conversations and questions to ask, and it's so cool that the engagement has been a blast.
Well, it's a global community. I say for me, Porsche is my drug of choice. That's how I describe it. But I think what unites all true car enthusiasts together is the thrill of the chase, the build, and ultimately the drive. And I think, that can all be done here under one roof. You got a big roof, 300,000 square feet, but obviously, you could go downstairs and build your dream Beetle just by pulling parts off the shelf. But I think, the global community is what I'm interested in. People sharing their stories, whether it's, their first car. I've got a buddy in England, Martin Roach, who's got a great story about his son Alfie, who's father and son building the Beetle in the garage, and it's going to be the kid's first car, Alfie's first car, and he's about to go take his driver's test in England in the Beetle that him and his father, Martin Roach, built. So everyone has those type of stories, and it seems like a timeless thing, like it's not ending, right? There's always a new generation of enthusiasts coming through. And like I said earlier, you guys have tons of heritage history to build upon right here. So inspiration's all around.
Yeah. Well, speaking of inspirations, really, what was one of the things that really inspired you? What drew you to the Porsche, right? Because we did talk a little bit about your, you got some muscle car stuff. You like a lot of cars. I think sometimes people take that as only a Porsche only guy.
Yeah, Porsche is my thing. I've got this little guy right here. Those of you that follow me on the gram know that guy's gone around the world. That's my good luck charm.
That's so cool.
The Porsche story, I don't really know why Porsche. My dad took me to the Knowles Court Motor Show as a 10-year-old in 1977. You guys may have heard that story. I had the poster on the wall as a 10-year-old. I wrote to Porsche. But why it wasn't Lamborghini or Ferrari or something else, Aston Martin, I don't really know. There was just something about the shape of that car, which is, it's evolved over 8 generations of 911, but it's still, the DNA is still pretty much still there for the most part. So I was just attracted by the way it looked, and obviously they went fast, sounded good. But growing up working class in Sheffield, I didn't really see a lot of Porsches on the road. So it was like a dream come true when I finally bought one when I was 25 years old back in 1992 at the world's greatest place, the Pomona Swamp Meet.
That's some of the stuff that we really enjoy talking about. And I think people would really enjoy following along is like your treasure hunting and just you're just a common guy walking around the show.
Well, I think that's the relatability, right? We're all chasing something, whatever it may be. I bought a car at the Pomona Swap Meet around this time last year, and the first one I bought was in 1992. So, I've been going to the Pomona Swap Meet for over 25 years before the internet existed, and people dragged all the parts out and took them to the Pomona Swap Meet, and people were getting there in the dark at 5 or 6 a.m. to go scavenging parts. And, then this thing called eBay happened, and Craigslist this, and whatever internet, and people were no longer dragging parts out. But Pomona is still thriving, and for me, it's just a mix of all the car cultures together in one place. Doesn't matter whether you're a Beetle guy, a Porsche guy, Corvette guy, 40s, 50s guy. They're all there at Pomona Swap Meet. And we were talking yesterday about these cars and coffees, right? They're still happening even during this strange time. People still want to get out, go drive, share car stories. And that's all part of life and the culture. And we're in the greatest place to do it here in Southern California.
Absolutely. And that's what really, to me, what the car culture is about, right? It doesn't matter if you're trying to be a drag race guy or you're a lowrider guy, or just a restoration guy, but if we all just, we all have a common bond is a love for a passion for cars and motorsport in general.
A need for speed.
Yeah, and just to be able to build upon that and be influential or just
do what you love. I mean, yesterday you were telling me your story about how you got involved. You're going off-roading, you're drag racing cars, you're building cars, you're developing parts for other people to build cars. And everything that you're sort of doing is done within a 100-mile radius of where we are, right? I mean, you don't have to go too far to drag race at Pomona or on the street or off-roading, wherever it is. There's plenty of places to go get your fix and drink whatever your need for speed is. Whatever flavor of speed you want is accessible here in SoCal pretty much all year round. Let's not forget, all my buddies that are in Europe, they're starting to put their cars away for the winter. I'm like, you're putting your car away for the winter. We take it for granted we can drive 365 here.
Oh, yeah.
And as long as the canyon roads are open, there's a couple of fires burning, but, it's still not, you don't have to go too far to find a great road to have fun.
Yeah, you can always go south, Ortega,
Crest. Ortega Highway.
And I think some of it's almost to a fault for us because, we'd like to see these bigger and more grandiose and larger shows, cars and coffees, and just gatherings, right? But there's so many offshoots, whether it's LA or Orange County or somewhere else, that it dilutes it a little bit to a point, but it's like, man, you want to draw everybody together. I remember going to the Rock store and you'd see Jay Leno there or something like that.
He's still around. I mean, I've been going to the Malibu Cars and Coffee a couple of times, and I mean, Jay to me is the greatest car enthusiast, and it's his diversity of his collection, his knowledge, the fact that he always has time for anyone, a quick little stop and chat, and he's always driving something really eclectic. I've seen him all over, the Mopar meet in Woodley Park. I've seen him driving his Gullwing in Angeles Crest Highway. I saw him pull up in a Bristol at Cars and Coffee in Malibu last week. So for him, it's not necessarily about, I don't think, high dollar cars. He's got some low dollar cars, and that's what makes him super approachable and super accessible in the sense of his diversity of his own collection.
Yeah. And then we'll get into some of your car collection yesterday. I got just a taste, and I definitely got to go back and check it out. But one of our friends down in Mexico City, one of the places that hopefully you'll tell us some stories about, but there's a big show coming up in December called the DKW show, and they're like, man, we got to get Magnus Walker to come down to the show.
I will say Mexico City, I think you guys know it. It's one of my favorite places. I've visited it half a dozen times in the past couple of years. I was actually down there earlier on this year in February for the Formula E race at the the Autodrome there, and there were over 100,000 people there for the Formula E race. And there's so much passion for motorsports down there, and so many really great hidden car collections that you don't necessarily know about, because these guys are not necessarily posting stuff on Instagram. Hey, look at what I've got. But some of the stuff I've seen down there, and one of the events I want to do is La Carrera Panamericana, which was just actually happened a couple of weeks ago. So really passionate community down there, not just in Mexico, in South America, all around. And so great places to visit, share stories, and speak the common bond of the car. My Spanish is not that great. I speak Spanglish, but we all seem to point to the car and grin, and I think we understand what we're trying to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So keep those questions, guys, coming. I mean, I'm doing my best to filter them. Hopefully you can help on yours, but some of the stuff that they're getting asked is they saw some of the snippets from yesterday's feed that we did. So favorite car in your collection, can you name it? And then on the flip side, the one you just kind of, the bastard child that you don't.
The favorite is 277. I've owned that car the longest. I bought it at Pomona Swap Meet. That's pretty documented that that's my go-to car. I've got variety. Recently I went back to my English roots. I bought the Ugly Duckling 1972 +2 E-Type Jag. I've been driving that around a lot. I have a funny story about that just happened today. The buddy that I bought it from, his dad ended up getting this little moving violation ticket of me in the carpool lane without a carpool pass on it that I'd just actually sort of veered into and wasn't fully aware of it, and then got out of it quickly. And anyway, so that was a funny story that literally just happened today with the E-Type Jag.
What's the one in your collection? I think I might know just from the story you told yesterday, but the one car you just kind of like, it's a love-hate. The love-hate car, right?
Well, the Lotus Europa is the love-hate car. I owned a Lotus Esprit, what I'm on about. I owned a Lotus Europa back in the day. 2 years ago, off Bring a Trail. I've told this story a few times, but I bought a running driving 79 Lotus Esprit S2, which didn't run or drive off the trailer, wouldn't go into gear. Then it became the slippery slope of I really loved the look of the car, but it wouldn't run around the block. Then my buddy Dorian actually got it running pretty well, and then I couldn't get out of it. The door was jammed. I had to climb through the passenger door. And if you've ever been in a Lotus Esprit and you're over 6 feet tall, there's not a lot of room in them. Then one day it was like 95 degrees. The windows wouldn't go down. But finally I did get at one with it one day in the Crest when I was really sort of on a spirited run and realized the car is super nimble, drives great. But then you start nitpicking, well, it needs a bit more power. It needs better brakes, stickier rubber. So the love-hate one probably is the 79 Lotus Esprit, because, ran when parked and then 20 minutes later it doesn't start. And there seems to be a lot of gremlins with that particular car. But we all have cars like that, right? We all have car stories where, that's for me why variety is always important, because no two ever drive the same.
Yeah. What would you say was one of did you have like a mentor that was really getting into it to kind of influence the builds or really kind of guided you along with some of that stuff?
No, not really. It's trial and error. For me, I have a little team of one. To back up, I'm an enthusiast. It's what I call an out-of-control hobby. It's not a business. I don't buy and sell cars. I go through phases where I'm building or I'm not building, depending if I'm traveling. So for me, growing up, I didn't really have a fancy car in the family, but I watched quite a lot of motorsports, in the 70s. Would go to tracks like Cadwell Park, Donington Park, little small circuits in the UK. I remember watching James Hunt take the 1976 Formula One Constructors Championship. We had Barry Sheen on two wheels. So at an early age, I watched a lot of motorsports, but I wasn't in that environment where my dad had a fancy car or was wrenching on cars. My dad was a salesman in and out of various jobs. So it wasn't like him and I were getting dirt under our fingernails, wrenching on the car, which is a common story, but that wasn't my story. I actually never even had a driver's license in England. I was into cars, but couldn't afford one. You could go everywhere on the bus for like literally 10, 20 pence. So it wasn't until I came to America in 1986 that I had my first taste of freedom. And that probably should lead up to the first car I ever bought, which was a 1977 Toyota Corolla 2TC that I bought here in LA for $200 back in 1988. And actually, I drove it around for probably 6 months without a driver's license, and then took my test at the DMV in Santa Monica. So that was my very first car, and that represented freedom to go anywhere, whenever you wanted to go, at whatever pace a 1977 Toyota Corolla would take you at. But it meant independence. I wasn't waiting for a ride or a lift or someone picking me up or whatever. So ultimately that to me is the greatest thing about the car is the freedom to do whatever you want to do
Yeah.
to it. We all like to build and modify. That's what's great about Beetles. That's what's great about Porsches. I'm not one of those guys that's going to judge someone and say, hey, why are you doing that? Because at the end of the day, it's your car. You can do whatever you want to it.
Yeah, we actually just talked about that the other day, and we talked about this even on the collecting of like some of the diecast stuff and how people were modifying and doing different things.
Yeah.
Like, it's you own it, you bought it.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy with it.
I mean, you want to talk about diecast Hot Wheels. I know you guys have got, plenty of EMPI cards from various people, but seeing the Hot Wheels community and what these people do to modify cars, and, they sent me some of my own cars modified with different wheels and lowered in different stances, and it's just another sort of extension of the car community, doing it in a 1/64th scale or whatever it may be.
Yeah, one of the questions just came in from one of our local guys, big VW nut, Andy, asked, do you currently own any Volkswagens? And if not, what have you owned in the past?
Well, it depends where you draw the line. Some people will say a Porsche 924 VW Audi is a Volkswagen. You know what I mean? It's all the parent company. I don't currently own any old Volkswagens. The last one I had was back in the days when I was selling jeans on the boardwalk in Venice. I did have a 68 bus. I used to put all the booth set up in and drive it to the boardwalk and set it up, but not currently, no. One time many years ago, there was a 63 Type 3 Common Gear, turquoise with light ivory, which was another car we bought at the Pomona Swap Meet. That one actually, I wasn't driving it, but it caught fire on the 5 freeway, and that's an interesting story. But that was a pretty cool car, the 63 Type 3.
Yeah, you don't see many Type 3 gears. Those are definitely...
That's pretty rare. And it was literally turquoise with light ivory, and it had silver vinyl interior, white wall tires. And it was a fun little car.
Yeah. Yeah, people are any plans to do some type of outlaw VW powered Porsche? I go, don't kill the messenger.
Never say never. There's opportunities to do a lot. For me, I'm all about variety. So I don't want to get pigeonholed into one thing. So I'm all about if it's fun and I'm into it, that's what I put my attention to. So that does sound like a fun idea from project. I guess time will tell.
Something we'll see what happens, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh, could be something building, huh?
Could be something happening. You never know.
So for my cohort over here, he's a big muscle car guy. He likes muscle cars, and he's definitely a Mopar guy.
Mopar or no car?
See,
I don't have a Porsche tattoo, but I got a Super
That's
tattoo right there.
I've been saving that one for you, buddy. I had to say that one for you.
Mopar or no car? Yeah. That was another car I bought at the Pomona Swap Meet. I had two 69 Super Bs.
Oh, nice.
One was a 383 4-speed F8 metallic green white interior, a bit of a basket case, but it ran. And then the other one was a 440 triple black. That was a real hot rod. You could get 4 people in that, go grocery shopping, and sort of have fun stoplight to stoplight.
Please tell me it's manual trans.
The 440 was automatic. The 383 was 4-speed. So they were both fun cars in slightly different ways. The 383 was actually pretty torquey. The 440 was like the go-to car. It was just, it was triple black. It was on wide wheels. It semi-tubbed. When I got it, actually had some super tall Mickey Thompsons. It had this Holly 1050 Dominator carb on it, which I didn't really know what that was, and a stall converter. I'm like, this just looks like heavy metal. It's the 90s. I'm buying it. And then I quickly realized what a stall converter did, and it wasn't that great on a street car when you were trying to navigate, stoplights and give it a bit of throttle, nothing, give it a bit more throttle, and it's on the go. So wasn't super usable on the street, so we quickly got rid of the stall converter and the 1050 Dominator car. But that was like another Pomona car story. I mean,
I'm going to start making tick marks about how many cars you've purchased at Pomona over the years.
Oh, there's at least half a dozen. One of my favorite Pomona stories was actually, I seldom sell cars, but occasionally you got to sell a car to pay a bill or to buy something else. And I had this pretty nice 65 Mustang. It was a GT 350R race replica, 351 Cleveland, Richmond 5-speed, Detroit locker. I didn't buy that car at Pomona, but I attempted to sell it at Pomona. And here's the funny part to the story. I park it in the sort of American car Mustang section, and I'm stood by it. I got a price tag on it. I think it was like $17,500, and it looked great. It was Wimbledon white, obviously the 2 blue stripes, torque thrust Ds. And this kid came up to me and says to his other buddy, he goes, "That's not even real. Carroll Shelby's not even signed the dash." And it was just like one of those super funny moments of, My Mustang wasn't real because Carroll Shelby hadn't signed the dash of my Mustang.
No authentication. Huh?
Yeah, it wasn't authenticated by Carroll.
Oh, my
But that's just another great Pomona swap meet story. There's plenty of
I think some of the people just chiming in, I'm watching, some of the guys know some funny stories, whether it's car buying stuff with Patrick knows, he's chiming in right now. Patrick knows one of my stories of buying a 65 Malibu for $1,200 and a washer and dryer, and meeting the dude in Fontana, and I drove it home.
We've all got stories like that. You know, I bought a 914. I traded it for a set of Outlaw wheels and a couple of bucks, and that was within the past few years. That's the red one. I got a funny story which involves a Rolls Royce, if you guys want to hear that one.
Oh, bring it on.
So my talented, tall, sexy girlfriend, Hannah Elliott, her birthday's coming up November 16th. If you're out there tuning in, I don't know if you are, but here's the story. Last year I'd bought Hannah for her birthday Mercedes 560 SL. Involved a trip back from SEMA, of all places, in my 928 that I drove down here in today. We stopped in Palm Springs. We go to one of these roadside secondhand car dealers. We see this Mercedes 560 SL. It wasn't expensive, under 10 grand. And we go, wow, that's pretty cool. I go, do you want one for your birthday? So that started the search for a Mercedes 560 SL. We looked at a few of them, ended up buying one here in LA, all black. But it turned out to be a little bit of it just had way too many issues, that car. Constant little rattles and squeaks and things that we couldn't get away from. So the place where we bought it from, this independent Mercedes specialist, I called the guy up and said, hey, we're not really happy with this car. It's got a couple of issues that we can't sort of fix. We don't want to fix them. Is there any way we can trade this car in against something similar price point? He goes, sure, bring it back. So we take it back down there. He's in semi-downtown LA, and Hannah's looking at these Mercedes. In the corner, I fixate on this 1975 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. And I'm just drawn to it. And so I had to ask him, I go, what's the price of the Rolls Royce? And it was pretty much on par with what we'd spent for the Mercedes SL, and under 20 grand, believe it or not. Long story short, we ended up trading the Mercedes sideways into a 1975 Rolls Royce Silver Shadow plus 2 grand. And it's one of those things that it's such a journey, that car. It's an experience where it doesn't go fast, but you're cruising in style, and you can go anywhere in that car, and it doesn't matter where you go. And the funny part to the story is we took it on a test drive on the 110 South and actually ran out of gas, like in a semi sort of dicey area down on Florence or something, in a gas station. Oh, fuck, we ran out of gas on the test drive. But anyway, the amount of people that came up and were just in love with that car. You know, it looks $1 million, but it's a car you can buy in the teens.
That's pretty cool.
And it's just one of those things that so far, fingers crossed, it's proved to be reliable, and that happened like in the past 2 months.
That's awesome.
So there's always these stories evolving where, you know, you can trade sideways, trade up, trade down. So long as you're having fun, making memorable moments, smiles per mile, whatever you want to say, I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to get some more smiles per mile stories and some of the stuff that we want. The listeners definitely have been asking about. Let's talk about one of the most underrated cars. What do you feel right now is one of the kind of an underrated or
vintage car or new car?
I think we got to go vintage first because more air cooled, probably vibe.
Well, back to me, you know, I recently bought a 1975 AMC Hornet. I wasn't looking for one. You know, I was looking for an old beat-up Patina D type Jag. A buddy sends me a text. You know, anyone that might be interested in my 1975 Hornet sends me a photo, original orange paint, all faded, perfect patina. It's got a 304 motor. I go, I might be interested. How much is it? He goes, it's $7,500. I go, I'll be there to look at it. Within an hour, I'd bought the car, and that wasn't something I was necessarily interested in, but it ticked the box of a baby muscle car. There's no performance to it. It's got like about 150 horsepower, you know, when it left the factory. So it's probably got, I don't know, a little over 100 now. But to me, that was an underrated car. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to put my finger on what is an underrated car because everyone seems to know everything. So I don't know. For me, the AMC Hornet was a car that wasn't on my radar, but I've enjoyed driving it. It's a fun grocery getter. It's not a Canyon crew hot rod, but it draws attention. You feel good in it. To me, it's all about feeling good in cars.
Yeah, somebody just said the car brings the best stories always in the adventure, and it's like this. You said smiles for miles.
I mean, I got never-ending stories. You know, back to my girlfriend Hannah Elliott. She's a writer for Bloomberg Business Week, so she gets these press cars all the time. Like, has 3 of them now. We barely have enough time to drive them. So I've got a funny Bentley story. You want to hear the funny Sunday Bentley story? Bentley Bentayga, you know. Going to go for a drive to this Cars and Coffee. You know, I've got a new dog, Willow. She's a puppy. I'm walking to the car. I open the door. let Hannah into the passenger seat. I'm trying to get Willow in. Willow doesn't want to get in the car because there's another dog coming. I've got a coffee, my face mask, the keys. I put the coffee on the roof of the car, put the key on the roof of the car, get Willow, the dog, in the car, and get in, press the start button, drive off. Don't think of anything. Drive to Cars and Coffee in Los Feliz. We got there too late, no cars there. Drive to Pasadena, park in Pasadena, get out the car. I never lock the car, but I'm trying to find the key in my pockets and stuff. Can't find the key. I push the start button, figure it'll detect the key. No key. Shit. All of a sudden, I'm backtracking. Fuck. I bet I left the key on the roof of the car. So now we got to Uber downtown, got to wait for an Uber. The Uber guy comes. He doesn't want to take the dog in the car. We finally get back downtown to the spot where we parked the car, where we first started it, where I put the keys on the roof. Can't find the keys. They're not there. Walk around the block. Can't find the keys. This is Sunday. I go, we don't want to call the press department at Bentley, tell them we lost the key. This is not cool. It's a pain in the neck. So I end up walking up over the 4th Street Bridge to the top of the ramp. Can't find it. I go, oh, this sucks. And there was a little flash warning that came on. It goes, key not detected. But I was on the 5 freeway, and it didn't occur to me that, because I'm driving vintage cars where everything's analog. What does this mean, key not detected? I just think it's some glitch. So anyway, long story short, I go, let's just walk a little further over the bridge. In the right-hand lane, there was a key still on the floor. An hour later, no one had ran over it. Then all of a sudden, we got to drive back to Pasadena, start the Bentley up, and that was it. That's a long-winded story that just happened to me in the past 48 hours. Yes. But the moral to that story is, old cars, you have a key, right? The key goes in the ignition. Key's on the left, bro, or in the 928, it's on the right. But, these new cars, there's nowhere to put the key, right? Other than on the roof and drive off, and the car still runs until you stop and try and turn it back on. So that's the difference between old cars have got character and soul. New cars do everything great for the most part, or some of them do, but you're so insulated from them.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me that, because there's nowhere to put a key in that car, right? So that's just I'm rambling on about a car story. We've all got them. And
no, we love that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff that's what's, somebody can relate to that. We've all done something dumb or closed the door. You're like, oh, as the door's closing, you're just like, no, because you're get out the coat hanger and we're gonna screw something up.
Yeah, Slim Jim that thing.
One of the guys posted best hidden gem or bang for the buck, or underrated, I should say, is an MGB GT. Yeah. Good comment. One of the questions that just came through too from Eric. What is the car you are still on the hunt for? Is there one you're kind of chasing right now?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it varies. I'm a goal-orientated collector. So when it was Porsche, it was one of everything: front engine, mid-engine, rear engine, air and water-cooled. So I got up to 996. So if I go chronologically, 997, 991, 992. But they fall into what I call OPP, other people's Porsches. I don't have to own them to enjoy them. I'm looking for a V12 E-Type Jag that I want to do actually a hot rod SEMA type of build on, where I want to take the ugly duckling, kind of like I already have the 2+2 automatic, but actually build one that's a hot rod, about 400 horsepower out of a V12. My buddy Harry at West Coast E-Types is going to help me with that project and do a conversion from an automatic to a manual 6-speed, get it on some wider steel wheels. So I found one in Miami. My buddy Al down at Park House once sourced his car. It's a 1971. It's blue on blue, blue paint, blue interior leather, but it's got this beat up Miami sun-faded, semi-rusted patinaed paint, which you can't really fake that. You can distress and make something sort of look old, but it always just kind of looks like you created it. Trying to find a car that's been buried out in Palm Springs, weathered in the sand, paint blistered and cracked and wind, sandblasted. It's hard to sort of manufacture that. And this car's got like the Miami version of that. Paint was all faded, and then it rains a lot in Miami. This car was parked outside. So it's coming. I'm going to get it in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how it is. So that's the car I'm currently chasing in the Porsche world.
That's got to sound awesome, too. Once you start getting it done up and start making the power, the sound of that V12.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really cool. And it's slightly flared, the V12. The straight 6 2+2 E-Tape, slab-sided, narrow-bodied. It looks awkward with the 2+2 roofline. I used to own a Series 1 fixed-head coupe, which is really sleek. But, I go in phases, Right now I'm sort of on this creative role phase, doing things like face masks and other people's, Zoom calls and IG lives and podcasts and whatever it is. And I'm having fun playing around with a few different makes of cars. And, for me, it's back to variety. Yesterday my buddy Larry Chan at the Hoonigan said, hey, can I bring a car by your warehouse? We're prepping for a photo shoot. I'm sure, no problem, couple of hours. I don't ask him what it is. It turns up on a trailer. It's a new Nissan 400Z prototype car. So, I got some photos of that car in the car park next to the Porsche. So every day is a different story. Like, I didn't think I'd be doing the IG Live on your live feed here today. So
appreciate it.
For me, I got to make the most out of every moment, especially in these crazy times, occupy my time, tell some stories, get inspired by what other people are doing. There's a lot of inspiration here, upstairs and downstairs. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm rambling on. I'm a rambling man.
No, well, this is the stuff that we like. I mean, this is the whole purpose of the show, is just to literally share, shoot the shit, talk some crap about stuff, tell some stories. I mean, everything we want to do. Oh, I don't get to it, Adrian. Don't worry. So I'm watching all the comments and stuff like that feed come through. But somebody noticed that the picture that we took yesterday has that checkerboard inlay, the black and white inlay on the seat covers.
Oh, the Pasha interior on the 928.
Yeah. He's like, is that from the old Vision skateboard style and stuff?
I could, same era. Porsche developed that Pasha fabric interior, and it came out in 1977. You could get it on any car in 77. I've got it on my 924. The key to happiness here, the 928 key, that's a 78 with Pasha interior. It does look like the Vans checkerboard shoes, obviously. So, it's a factory interior, that Pasha. Psychedelic, trippy. But that was what was great about the 70s, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 60s, 70s, that for me really is for me personally, is my golden era. I'm 53, so when I was growing up, those posters out on the wall were cars from the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s. To me, that's the birth of the supercar, right? Yeah. Now people are talking about hypercars, this SSC Tuatara car that just did, an average of 316 miles an hour. Oliver James Webb, if you're tuning in, you drove that car. Awesome job. So
so cool. I couldn't even imagine just what that has to feel like. I know. I remember when the Bugatti came out, that was like the 200 mile per hour, eclipsing that, and then someone's just like, wow, like, oh, you can only do it twice with these tires and this and that. Just now the level just keeps going. Like, where does it stop?
They did that average 311 or 316.
Yeah,
it's over 500 kilometers an hour. Nuts. On apparently stock Michelin Sport Pilot Cup tires. On a US made car. Yeah. How awesome is that?
You got to have a pair of cods on you sometimes.
That guy's got some big balls.
It's funny because you've done some club racing, or I should say some. You know, quite a bit of it, but you never really, none of the cars in the collection. And there's a lot of hot rod guys on here are super crazy power, over the top walls. You got the wolf in sheep's clothing car, which is badass, but it's not that fire breathing monster.
No, for me, I was always about a momentum car. It was always fun chasing faster cars down on the track. You'd catch them in the turns, they'd pull you in the straight, the usual cat and mouse thing. I'm all about usable power, what I call a flat foot car, where, it's a bit more than a momentum car, but I've driven cars with a lot of horsepower that are not fully usable because you run out of open road or you're in traffic pretty quickly. So for me, I've always been more of a small displacement, able to keep your foot planted and usable power. In the Porsche world, I've been in it bought my first one in 92. So what is that, 28 years. So, people always, there's a trend of overbuilding cars. You go down the parts list, bigger is better, right? Yeah. But yet then at the end of the day, they're not really driving them any faster in the street environment. Track car, different thing. Performance car, like what you're racing off-road, different thing. But in a street environment, my advice is always have a goal in mind as to what is the end use of this car, right? It's like guys that are building 700-800 horsepower 911 motors and more that run on 110 octane. It's like you can't really find 110 octane all over the place. No. You can't just pull into a pump station and get 110. So, to me, it's got to be usable performance. And my thing is always really is kind of smaller displacements for the most part. Obviously, I have some turbo cars, but even those 3-liter turbos I've got, by today's standards, they're not really that performance orientated. 240 horsepower today is nothing when you can get 700-800 horsepower off the showroom floor, right? Oh, yeah. In a Hellcat. So it's crazy how horsepower has gone up. Like 400 horsepower in the 80s was a huge deal. Now that's like entry level. Like 400 horsepower is nothing.
Well, and they're getting 300 plus out of a V6.
Yeah.
Just the efficiency factors and everything else. It's all changing.
Performance, it's based around a lot of things. Obviously, at the end of the day, I always say, hey, one of the cheapest ways to get more performance is just get a better tire on your car to begin with before you go down the slippery slope of more power on this side and the other. You know what I mean? Good brakes, suspension, sticky rubber, and then, ease in on the power has been my sort of mantra. But, some people, too much is never enough, and that's fine as well.
Yeah, it's to each their own, right, if they feel comfortable. But a lot of the people in today's days are never really getting to that point at the cars and driving, and you had to kind of gradually work their way up and put the seat time in.
Seat time's important.
One of the interesting questions that even for myself I want to know is I didn't see a single motorcycle around the...
Yeah, I've never owned a motorcycle. My brother is a keen motorcyclist. He has an aftermarket performance business in Sheffield, supplying performance parts for sport bikes and off-road bikes. I never got into... growing up as a kid, I never even had a bicycle. I didn't own a skateboard, didn't have a bicycle, so I never naturally progressed to a motorbike. My brother did, but I've ridden them, but I prefer my fun on four wheels. It's too much of the beard in the wind and hair blowing everywhere, but... I like seeing guys on bikes in the crest getting the knee down. That's always my thing. Get your knee down, fella. And, the world's craziest motorcycle race has to be, the TT races in Ireland. Man, seeing what those guys do.
That's on my bucket list to go.
Yeah, it's awesome. A couple of years ago, I went to the World Superbike event at Coda in Austin, Texas. It was awesome to see those guys, drifting through the turns. But I've never owned a motorbike.
Yeah, that's interesting. The all the little nooks and crannies of that layout of your place is just awesome to. Yeah. I figured I'd see an old BSA tank in there or something cool,
No, never owned one. Bikes. All vehicles are welcome. Bikes do come. People come down on bikes. Everyone's welcome.
That's awesome. And thank you again for yesterday's hospitality. It was really cool just to take it all in.
Take the tour.
It was awesome. We gotta hear some of your favorite car moments where you just kind of going down the road and you're just kind of like, wow, like I'm here and is this really happening right now?
I can give you three off the top of my head in no particular order. Miglia. One of the top 10 bucket list events, the 1,000 miles around Italy, starts at Brescia, goes all the way down to Rome and comes back. Another twist of fate. This happened to me. True story. I posted a photo of my buddy Ray Campbell's car on Instagram. Happened to be a 1963 Mercedes. I get a DM from the dude that runs the Mercedes Museum in Stuttgart, the Classic Center, the museum. He goes, wow, so cool. A Porsche guy posted a photo of a Mercedes. He said, if you're ever in Germany, you want to tour the Mercedes Museum in Stuttgart, just across town from the Porsche guys, you're welcome. So happened to be in Stuttgart, took a tour at the museum, saw this Gullwing, and said, I've always loved Gullwings. And he literally said, well, do you want to drive it? I go, that would be awesome. Where? He goes, how about the Miglia? And that was how I got to do the Miglia with Mercedes-Benz, Hannah and Elliot and I. And I was the world's greatest co-pilot. And we did that race, or that event, it's not a race, but we did it with factory Mercedes-Benz support. So you're in the car 12, 14 hours a day. It's a slog. It's exciting. It's intoxicating. It's overwhelming. It's tiring. And at the end of the day, you give the car back to them. They check everything, and you start again the next morning. So that was one of my top 10 events. I had a really fun drive across Australia in a Porsche Cayenne, which basically, quite a lot of that was off-road through this place called the Simpson Desert, Ayers Rock, Big Red. And then another fun drive for me was down in Colombia. I drove from Bogota to Medellin, also in a Porsche Cayenne, which was one of my top 10 drives. There's just a lot of crazy drives down there. I've had fun drives in Dominican Republic, Mexico City. I drove from Veracruz to Mexico City. Driving through Mexico City in the rain at night time's insane, because it's like a free-for-all there. The roads are messed up. Mexico City's super hilly and steep and stuff. So, there's fun roads everywhere. So those are a few examples of fun drives in various parts of the world.
Is there a particular event or a race that you're really wanting to go and attend or participate in?
Carrera Panamericana is one. Miglia I did. That was great. I'd like to do some off-roading, a little bit. I've never really done off-roading.
Now we're talking.
I know you guys are off-road guys. It's another thing growing up in England, not having access to that environment. It wasn't like I went off-road. Now, I hear the stories like your story. A lot of people growing up in SoCal, dirt bikes, off-road bugs, ATVs. It's easy in California to go off-road. You don't have to go very far to go off-road, right? So, you know, I've done sort of a little bit, but never in really purpose-built cars. And my buddy, TJ Russell, built the Baja 911, the purpose-built, really trick off-road vehicle. So something like that.
That thing is cool.
Yeah, he did a really awesome job on that car. I mean, that set the bar really, really pretty high. So we'll see. Time will tell.
I think it sounds like we got to get him in on one of the hot rods.
Well, you got plenty of them.
Wow, I'm kind of just, there's so much stuff going on. And you know, one of the things that, and we're jumping around, and that's the whole purpose of this whole deal, is one of the things that I really got and enjoyed was listening to you talk about just your involvement with the Hot Wheels side of things and getting into how many cars you've actually produced through there. It was quite a few.
Yeah, for me, the Hot Wheels thing happened really organically. Everything for me happens organically. It's like you guys coming to visit me, and every sort of collaboration that I've done, and I haven't done a ton of them, but I've done a few. Done some stuff with Mobile One that's allowed me to display cars at the SEMA show. Done a couple of things with Porsche. But the Hot Wheels one, it literally, hey, you're interested in collaborating on a car together. It started with a 356, of which I've actually never owned one. But that didn't mean I couldn't doodle one on a little sketch on a line drawing. And in 2016, that was the first one I did, a Hot Wheels 356, came in 2 colors, black and silver. Since then, I've done about 25 of them. Halfway through, probably 2-3 years ago, they said to me, are you interested in doing it on Porsche? I said, sure, why not? And I've done quite a lot of, hot rod Beetles with Hot Wheels. There was a transporter with the bus on that. There's a couple of the micro buses. So, for me, it's just a fun, creative thing. And it's the world's greatest business card is being able to give out a Hot Wheels diecast and then actually to have my own Hot Wheels like 277 and, the 924, 944, the 964, the 914. So cars that I still own and cars that I've built to become a Hot Wheels is kind of, for me, a really, really cool thing. And it appears, the Hot Wheels community is a global community and people are obsessed with Hot Wheels. You've got a bunch of Hot Wheels laying around here. So, it's a perfect little thing to carry around with you in your pocket. Yeah. So
it's like, there's certain cars that I know I'll never be able to afford in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'm right there with you.
But I can have that. Or I sometimes you just appreciate stuff where you look at things. For me, it's like inspirational. Right. And that was kind of my next question is what are some of the influences or where do you get some of the inspiration? Like the 914, but the other one, just there's some of the different things. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I say inspiration's everywhere. I talk about my inspiration really came from growing up as a kid in England watching American TV. Dukes of Hazzard, Starsky and Hutch, yes. Rockford Files, Kojak, all these U.S. sort of crime drama cop shows. A lot of times they had cool cars in them, like Starsky and Hutch, the Ford Torino, right? Yeah. So for me, it was Americana, it was Evel Knievel, it was Captain America. That was... Yeah, right there. That was part of it. And then it was a combination of, for me, the golden era of Porsche Motorsports was the 60s and 70s. They won Le Mans for the first time in 1970. And then just American hot rods. So for me, what I did was a little bit different. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to replicate this 1973 RS Carrera, nut and bolt the way the factory did it. I added elements of my own personality into that build. I say I throw it in the blender and what comes out of the cars that I've built. It's a little bit hot rod. It's a little bit boy racery. It's a little 60s and 70s Captain America, Evel Knievel. Because at the end of the day, these cars are more than a mode of transportation. They're a reflection of your own personality. And that doesn't matter what car it is, whether it's a Porsche, a Beetle, a Subaru, a Sport Import Tuner, a Cali Lowrider, an Impala. It doesn't matter, right? Everyone's adding personality to their cars, whether it's a 70s van or whatever it is. And back to what we said at the beginning, the epicenter of all that is right here in Southern California. The story of GIs returning after the war, building hot rods, American graffitis, Chop 32s, and whatever it may be. That culture is here. So the ability to be able to get, things fabricated, powder-coated, CAD-plated, louvered, whatever it may be, customized, right, it's not necessarily easy, but the availability of the resources is here. What amazes me is when I go to England and these old geezers are, down a dirt road at the end of a farm in a barn and then been there for 100 years. I go, how do they get stuff done? They're in the middle of nowhere. look where we are. We're kind of surrounded by people creating aerospace, automotive, manufacturing, right? CNCing, and technology is moving forward, and it's the opportunity is still there to create cool stuff. And I think as long as we can still get oil and gasoline, we're still going to be driving whatever our favorite drug of choice car is, right? We're in this interesting time where, California legislation saying by 2035, which is only 15 years away, that you won't be able to buy a new car that's not electric. You go, wow, this is kind of worrying a little bit. But if we can still get oil and gasoline, right, oil and gas, and we're staying lubricated, we're still going to be able to drive our old clunkers. So,
How do you feel on stuff like that? That's an interesting point.
Here's what I feel. I've driven, the Porsche world, the Taycan. I break it down into two categories. There's commuting and there's driving. So I'll sum up commuting. I don't commute. I live downtown. I walk to work. I live up to my name, Walker. I get about 10,000 steps in every day. But if I worked in Santa Monica, 18 miles away, and I had to take that drive on the 10 freeway, which takes about an hour, that's a miserable drive. So a self-autonomous electric driving or whatever it is car that commutes, I think that's a perfect place for it. But that's not the car I want to take on my favorite road, Angeles Crest Highway, where I want to get at one with the car, or on an extended road trip where you're worried about range anxiety and where am I going to charge the car, right? So I break it down to if you're in an urban environment and you're commuting, why not, right? Because that's not a fun drive. But if you want to go have fun, I think you need to be in control of the vehicle. And we all love the sight, the smell, the sound, the intoxication, the vibration, everything that cars bring to you. So it's horses for courses. It depends where you're going and how you want to get there.
Yeah,
that's my answer to that question.
That's interesting. I mean, it can be bothersome, and you think about it. It's like, well, are you going to take the other cars off the road? What's you going to do? Like, you just never really know.
Well, that's the point. So long as you don't take the cars off the road, we're still good.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear, especially living here.
Like, where are you going to drive them?
Yeah, I mean, we already deal with smog regulations that are so difficult, for guys that are true enthusiasts that really matter.
Right.
74 and down and all that. It's just brutal. And we all enjoy the sound of music, as some say, with the carbs just barking down the highway and
sucking air and raspy exhaust and stuff like that. I get it. I do get it.
What about converting an old Porsche to electric?
There's quite a few people doing that here in SoCal. I haven't done it. It's not on my list of things to do, but I'm certainly not opposed to it. If you can have, modern technology in an old car that you love. And I think that's going to be a future trend, not just in Porsches. I think a lot of people are going to be doing, it's already happening. You name it, someone's done it. Electric Land Rover, electric Bronco, electric Mustang. Look at Vaughn Gittin Jr. in the 1,400 horsepower, Mustang that he was driving at Goodwood, right?
Yeah.
So I think people are going to figure a way because, hypothetically, if you couldn't run an internal combustion motor and you could put an electric motor of some sort in your favorite whatever and you're still driving with style, right? Why not?
Yeah, one of our cohorts downstairs, one of the Sletton brothers, he's building a Tesla-powered Class 5, basically a Baja Bug with a Tesla power in it. Things.
Well, you look at Formula E, the race series, right? They're now doing an extreme Formula E, which is electric off-road vehicle racing.
Yeah, it's going to be there's obviously the way of the future, And
you have to adapt, otherwise we're going to become dinosaurs, right? Look at the technology we have here. If we were still on our Motorola flip phone, we wouldn't be doing this, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to adapt to the future. I was the guy, I don't know, I didn't get an iPhone until iPhone 5 or 6. I used to make fun of guys like this on the phone, and now I'm that guy. But hey, we're broadcasting it right here on the IG Live, right? So you got to adapt. Look at all the technology you have here, right?
Well, it's stuff that, again, I'd like to look at it as just documenting some history. It's everybody likes to talk about, dinosaurs or this or that. I mean, to me, it's the car guys too, the inspirations and what we gather from it. It's just cool to document this to be able to share forever.
Right.
We can always revisit it. And remember that time we were on the EMPI Insider Show and we did this and that?
Back in 2020. We'll be on the rocking chair on the porch talking about this, 30, 40 years down the road or whatever it may be, because we are in this interesting time. It's a little bit, go back 120 years and Henry Ford's got, the Model T, right? And this was revolutionary. We're not really thinking about it because we're in it and we're bombarded with all this information and technology. But in 20, 30 years, if there are no more new cars that are internal combustion motor cars, I think there'll still be little low volume people manufacturing small runs that are able to get around it, right? Yeah. But we're going to look back and go, wow, we were right in the middle of it. And we didn't really think about it because everyone said, oh, only 5% of the population's driving an electric car right now, if that. Yeah. You know, what's going to happen with, you know, electric trucks and electric, you know, Raptors and F-150s. And I think the number one selling vehicle in America is an F-150 pickup truck, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And is there an electric version of that coming? I don't know, but I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, they've got it on the industrial markets and stuff like that. But it's kind of crazy. And like, to me, if we really take just even a one step further back of it, I almost feel we're in like the resurgence of the horsepower game of the 70s.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you briefly touched on it with, you know, it started with like the Hellcats and the Corvettes pushing 500 horse. Then it went 600. Now you got 707. And now you got the Demons at 850. And
right.
Now look at the Hummer truck with 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
And
well, look at this Tuatara car, right?
Yeah.
I think that, what is it, 1,400 horsepower, 1,800 horsepower? It's something nuts.
And these are almost full production vehicles that are getting there. You've got the Duval, the one in Saudi, right? That makes like 1,600 horsepower, quad turbo.
Here's what I don't get though: cars are getting bigger and bigger, and city streets are getting more and more congested. Bike lanes here. I live in downtown LA. You know, the roads are pretty narrow there. Oh, yeah. It's like the cars are so big, and you think, well, how are these cars even getting around Europe? You know, how are these cars getting around these small streets? There's nowhere to park them. I don't understand why cars are getting bigger. But yeah, you know, I guess if you've got 8 kids and you're going to soccer practice, I get it. But I see a lot of these big cars with one person in them driving them. It's like, why do they need to be so big?
Yeah. A lot of that stuff, I think, just you kind of forget. You get numb to it because of the fascination with the vehicle.
Even Porsche, you know, you look at the new 992 today and you park a car from the 70s next to it, it looks huge. I parked my E-Type Jag the other day, and I've got the 2+2, the ugly duckling, which is 9 inch longer than the Series 1. And I happened to pull up behind a Porsche Taycan around the corner from where I live. I parked it next to it, took a photo, and the Taycan looks huge next to it. Really? Next to my E-Type Jag, which is pretty long.
The width of those vehicles, too, are also like the Panameras and stuff like that. I mean, they get really wide.
Yeah, they do.
And then you look at the Hummer, it's gigantic.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, man.
It's a love-hate thing, that new Hummer, I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of taboo. You know, it really is. The size and the shape. I mean, we've been discussing it pretty regularly here. Just there's always some new little snippet that comes out. Yeah. It's like, what the heck? Just threw everything at everything.
That's it.
And that's it. Let's just throw it all in one four-wheeled contraption.
Strange times.
You besides the Porsche, have you driven much of the other electrical vehicles and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've driven the Tesla with a ludicrous mode. I'm not a Tesla fan. I'm not a Prius fan. Interestingly, I went to Norway last year before, and Teslas were everywhere there. I guess it's all a tax incentive for electric vehicles over there. The Taycan, I will say, is extremely fast, like really, really fast. But if you're on your favorite road that happens to go uphill to 7,000 feet and you're not really on the brakes much, you are eating up battery power. You know, we used up almost 40% going 26 miles up to Newcomb's Ranch. Wow. Didn't touch the brakes. Full throttle going uphill. Coming down, different story. You regenerating and, you know, bringing the energy back. But I think range anxiety is a thing with those because you can't necessarily go off the beaten path because, you know, the car was dropped off downtown. The guy goes, you got like 96% range. You know, this should be good for 200 miles. I thought, I'm going to Newcomb's and back. It's 92-mile round trip. I'm not worried about where am I going to charge it. And the guy's telling me, well, there's a charging station around the corner near Earth Cafe. I go, I'm not going to do 100 miles. I'm not worried about charging. But by the time we got to Newcomb's Ranch, which is 46 miles away, we were less than 50% of charge. So if I'd wanted to continue to Wrightwood and get there probably with 20% charge, I know there's no charging station in Wrightwood, you know, so range is a strange thing. I don't know how they calculate it, but I don't think they're calculating it when you're on a bonsai run with your foot planted, pedal to the metal style, because if you're doing that going uphill and you're not stopping, you're not generating and using a lot of energy because those cars are heavy. But I will say it handled great. And the weird thing about the noise is the noise of the tires and suspension creaking and squeaking and chassis flexing, that didn't bother me. It's these people that like to pipe in artificial noise. Oh, yeah, I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yeah,
right?
What's going on here?
Yeah.
This don't seem right.
This does not seem right. I can live with electric cars making squeaks and, you know, odd noises and whines. Obviously, it's not the same, but why try and make it sound like something it's not?
Yeah, that's true.
There's my 2 cents.
What was one of the first items that like you created that for one of your builds that was kind of a dawn of things to come?
I don't know. I suppose maybe drilled door handles, louvered deck lids, louvered fenders. Maybe that was it. And then, the Outlaw wheel collaboration with 1552 that came around in 2014. That was a reinterpretation of the classic Fuchs wheel where we hollowed out the centers. And that was a really, really good collaboration to actually have your own wheel, your own set of wheels, and see other people rolling on those. Because for me, like, that was the only sort of collaboration I'd done, like the louvered deck lids and other things, drilled door handles and fenders and stuff like that. I never sold them. It was just for my own cars, I just built for myself or had stuff built with a little team. I'd be like the kind of creative type and then find someone who could fabricate, stamping out louvered deck lids and fenders and stuff like that. So for me, it was just learning as I went along, but maybe those were the things.
Yeah, very cool. You have to share with us some of the fun facts, and everybody thinks it's glitz and glamour a lot of times on building a SEMA car. And
I've never technically built a SEMA car. I've been fortunate enough to display cars at SEMA. I first went to SEMA in 2012 after the Urban Outlaw film came out. So, Tamir, if you're watching, thanks again for the film. You made me look good. Anyway, first SEMA, I snuck in. Bob Smith, I had someone else's pass. And then 2014, 18 months later, 2 years later, I guess, I ended up displaying 2 cars with Mobil 1. And my latest SEMA story or build, I'll try and make a long story short because I ramble on, as you can tell. But I'm at the Hot Wheels Legends Tour 2018, 50th anniversary, Santa Clarita. I'm one of the judges. Mobil 1's a sponsor. Cory, my buddy who runs an agency that does stuff with Mobil 1, says, you want to put a car in at SEMA? And SEMA was like 2 weeks ago. I go, I don't even have anything. And I just bought this 914. And I wanted to do an art car project for it. And I'd done a little rendering on I don't know how to do Photoshop. So I literally took a photo of the car, printed it out black and white, got out some Sharpies and did the doodle of this mod-inspired 914 with literally a checkerboard roof that at the time was just yellow Post-its on the roof. And anyway, he goes, wow, if you can do that, great. So I bought the car from this guy called Felix Holst, who was an artist who actually used to work at Hot Wheels. And I said, hey, we've got an opportunity to do a car for SEMA. Are you on board? And long story short, we did a punk rock gorilla rattle can build, which was done in 3 days, mock-up spray job, old school style with vinyl tape, paper tape, lots of masking tape and quite a few rattle cans, but only $500 worth of material spent on it. And it went to SEMA. And for those that don't know, SEMA's generally like a big budget bill with a bunch of sponsored stuff put on cars, generally pretty shiny. And I don't think there's ever been, or I won't say there's never been, but in the years that I've been going, I've never seen a 914 at SEMA. So I ended up displaying my 914 at SEMA, which took 3 days to put together. I wouldn't say build, but it was cosmetic refresh with $500 worth of material. So it was kind of like, if I can do it, you can do it. Just get in there, get your hands dirty. Don't worry about failure. Don't worry about what other people think. Just build for yourself and don't worry about, hey, trying to make someone else happy. And that was my SEMA build story of 2019. And that car got quite a lot of attention at SEMA because it was a beat-up old 914 that had been rattle-canned and just happened to be on display at Mobil 1.
It's cool. We shared it on the live stream yesterday and a couple little snippets, but it's just different. The patina look, it's just a different vibe. I mean, that's the exposure of that stuff will hopefully inspire somebody else's next build, maybe.
Yeah, like I say, just get in there, and nothing for me has to be perfect. I don't think there's a perfect car that exists out there, whether it's an old car or a new car. Especially new cars, they've got issues with all types of electrical gremlins and this, that, and the other. And I've never owned a car, no matter what price point I bought it at, whether it was $500 or a bit more, that didn't need some work, like the Lotus, right? The running, driving Lotus didn't run off the trailer. I mean, we all have those stories, and that's the relatability of what we're sharing here is we're all talking about things that everyone's gone through.
Yeah, it's just part of the hobby.
Yeah.
So if you were to tell somebody, with us traveling around, because we have a lot of listeners around the globe, but I mean, especially here in Southern California, but where would you tell some enthusiasts to go, or maybe like this place to go to like see their collection, or besides the Peterson, obviously, stuff here, but where else? I mean, you've traveled around the world, so you've got to have a couple spots.
I think, truth be told, for me, for anybody, visit your local Cars and Coffee. I used to go to the one down in Irvine off the 5 freeway. That perhaps was the one that started it all, was the world's greatest one. If you happen to be in Atlanta, go to Caffeine and Octane. I mean, wow, those guys, I went down there last year. They had me come down because they have a show. And they go, we're the world's largest cars and coffee. And I go, I've heard this before. Everyone's got the world's largest cars and coffee, right? But I got there, and it was out of control, over 2,000 cars.
Wow.
So if you're in Atlanta, Caffeine and Octane, check that out. Wherever you are, whatever your city you're in, every city's got a car culture. Miami's a great place. But visit your local cars and coffee, because you're going to see everything from just diversity all the way through. So that would be my advice. Gain inspiration. Don't worry about making things perfect. And don't wait. Just dive right in. Start doing your own thing, whatever it may be, a $500 build or whatever it may be. If you're a Porsche guy, people say to me all the time, what's the best first Porsche? I go, well, depends on your budget. There's quite a lot of Porsches you can buy for under $5,000. They might not be an air-cooled 911, but I own 924s and 944s and 914s. Just get behind the wheel, have fun, get out there, create, and make some of your own memorable moments. That's
cool. I definitely see a few of our die-cast and Hot Wheel people in here right now. Can you tell us any more about the upcoming Hot Wheels RLC collaboration?
Well, there's always things brewing when it comes to Hot Wheels. I think the next one that's coming out is my 935 277. That's not an RLC car. It's a general Hot Wheels car. The last RLC car I did was a 964, which came out 2 different ways. So stay tuned for Hot Wheels things. There's always some excitement brewing with Hot Wheels. Check them out on the Virtual Legends tour, and maybe your build could become a Hot Wheels diecast.
Yeah.
Just like mine did here, that's going around the world.
Well, Magnus, I mean, we already spent an hour together. I can't believe it.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Heck yeah. And we're definitely going to have to do this. And remember, to tour the back secret room, you got to come back a second time.
Yeah, apparently you can't come to EMPI on the first time and tour the back secret archive, Holy Grail, nerve center, epicenter of all things EMPI. But I want to thank you guys for welcoming me, giving me the tour, and showing me around. It's been awesome.
No, man, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I know our time will be well spent, and look forward to working on some projects together.
Yeah, let's go have some fun in the dirt and desert somewhere.
I'm in. You guys heard it. We're going to get them now.
We'll see what happens next. Stay tuned.
Guys, enjoy it. Thank you, as always, for tuning in each week. Awesome guests like Magnus Walker. So much more coming down the pipeline together. And make sure you follow us on Facebook and our YouTube channel at The EMPI Insider. We'll see you next week.
EMPI Insider. Bug out.